Hi, thank you so much for joining me live today for my Wellness Wednesdays. Today we'll be chatting about imperfect GPAs, failing forward, and perseverance with Joan, or your female engineer as you know her from social media. Joan is a Mission Integration Systems Engineer at NASA for the Launch Services Program, working on all non-crewed and scientific missions. Her missions include Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, the Europa Clipper, GOES-U, and the Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe, or IMAP. Joan received a dual bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and chemistry and a master's degree in systems engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School. Prior to working for NASA, Joan worked for Blue Origin on the New Glenn rocket and the Naval Air Systems Command on jet engines, fuel systems, and biofuels research and qualification. And so with that, I'll be adding her on. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so
Virtually.
much. Yes, thank you so much for joining me. I am so incredibly grateful for your time and just happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I love Wednesday, Wellness Wednesdays. I love what you're doing. So like you asking me to be on it, I was just completely honored. I was like, yes, absolutely.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I wish you could, I actually have goosebumps from what you said. Okay. So Joan, for anyone on your end who has just joined and has no idea who I am or what I do, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays for Minorities in STEM. I'm Ricky Roy. I'm a aerospace engineering graduate student at Georgia Tech, and I host these chats every week. With my series, I hope to challenge the norm with the audacious notion that to succeed, you have to take utmost care of yourself, intellectually, socially, spiritually, and physically first, before anything else, particularly amongst us minorities. So now that I'm kind of done with my spiel, Joan, I'd love for you to tell us something that is either a quirky sentence, like people know your official bio, something that someone wouldn't know, or anything catchy that you would like to share.
So I am a Puerto Rican native, Orlando raised rocket scientist that also is a band nerd. I'm a huge band nerd. I love to read books and I love binge watching shows. Like that is my favorite thing to do.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love how it like provides the humanness to the kind of technical bio that I just read out. So I love that question when I ask it.
I know.
Okay, so I'll be jumping into the topics. I want to pick out a specific quote that you had given on an article that you had written, and you'd said, people think that STEM degrees are hard and that you need a perfect GPA to get a job in the field. I'm here to tell you that you don't. As a chemistry major, I failed organic chemistry and I am not ashamed to admit it. So just like a little pause, just like a breath. I love that.
It's bringing bad memories of when I failed organic chemistry.
Oh gosh. So kind of jumping into the questions, to whatever extent you feel comfortable, could you take us back to that moment and reflect what were the key things you felt like were missing or different between someone who passed that class at that time and yourself?
So the whole notion of, like failing classes, I can deep dive into that in a little bit later, but organic chemistry is that make it or break it class. Like a lot of us here, like when you're in college and you're going through a degree, it's like you hit one class that you either pass it and then you can keep going, or if you fail, you should think about another degree. And I don't like that saying, because to me, organic chemistry was the make it or break it class for a chemical engineer or a chemist. And I don't like it because, for myself, organic chemistry is a lot about memorization. And so you have to memorize the names of these molecules. They're going to draw these molecules differently, and then you have to name them. There's like just a whole bunch of memorization involved. And for me personally, I don't learn that way. I don't learn memorizing facts or memorizing specific things to pass a test. Like for me, I'm a problem solver. Give me, a math equation and let me solve it all the way to the bottom. I'm good with that. So organic chemistry for me, it's not necessarily that I didn't do anything different than my classmates that passed it. It was just that, I worked as hard, I studied as hard as everybody else. It just wasn't it just wasn't sticking with me. I wasn't able to, reciprocate on paper how much I have learned. And then the other thing we tend to not talk about is, some people have test anxiety. And I know me personally, whenever I'm, going to study for a test, I'm studying for hours, for days, just as much as everybody else. But sometimes when I'm sitting down on paper, I have those moments where I just completely blank out. And whenever you're doing a test like organic chemistry and you blank out on memorization, it's extremely difficult to pass those exams. So, for me, when I failed organic chemistry, I was extremely depressed. Like everybody else who fails a class, you feel like you're not worthy. And again, that's a make it or break class. So you tend to think like, is chemical engineering or chemistry, is that something that I can succeed in? Because I couldn't even pass this like pivot point class. And so, I was talking to my launch director yesterday, and he was I was telling him who I was, my background and all that stuff. And I told him I'm a chemical engineer chemist. And he specifically told me, he's like, oh, I have a daughter. She was a chemical engineer, but then she took organic chemistry and failed. And then she switched to industrial engineering. And so, that's what I'm trying to do with social media is, what if she had a passion for chemical engineering and then she got to this one pivot class, she failed, and then she just thought that she wasn't good enough, and this happens to a lot of us out there. Again, I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought about switching my major several times, but it's just really difficult to get out of that mentality of you're not good enough, you failed a class, you should definitely, change your major completely. That's not true. For me, I had a really hard professor, didn't give extra credit. And, a lot of us are looking for extra credit or that curve. And it just, it's really hard to compare, taking a class at a certain college versus a different college. So, for me, I was extremely depressed. I was low for a while. And, when I was taking organic chemistry again, I had that anxiety of, am I good enough to pass? I passed with a C. It's not an A or a B, but it's, I was able to pass. But again, it's just, I was not good at memorization and I know my weaknesses. And so for me, passing it with a C was like the biggest thing in the world. Like I was just throwing a party for myself. I was like, okay, it's behind me. I'm going to move on. Let's go.
No, I absolutely loved everything you said. And again, goosebumps all around. I think it's so important. And, that's why I have these conversations and why your representation is so crucial and what you do is amazing, because we need to hold space for not just like the science facts, like I say, but the human behind the science, and let others know that you can fail and you can get back and you can do even better. And, obviously the questions that come after this kind of talk about how your career has been shaped in the, magnificent way that it has. And it hasn't been impacted by this grade. And if it has, it's only kind of, I guess, impacted your humility and again, the humanness, and made you more vocal about these like really important things. And I love the piece about just recognizing what kind of learner you are, because each of these classes, if you're not passing forward with the knowledge in the class because you haven't maybe mastered it or you haven't been able to do it in the time that was given because of like real major reasons, at least you've learned like who you are as a learner. And sometimes other people who are succeeding in those classes are getting through, maybe that's not something that they're taking away, and their time to learn that will come later. We're all gonna learn.
we all learn. We're all on this roller coaster of life, So, yeah, absolutely. The other thing, talk about GPAs in general is just how much emphasis we have on GPA as a society. That semi-viral video that I posted about like, hey, I had a 3.2 GPA, I still made it to NASA. Like 85 to 90% of the comments were like super proud. We're very excited. Like, yes, I have hope. I can succeed like you. But then you still had like that 10% of like the trolls of like, well, you were a diversity hire, or, move aside, let someone with a higher GPA get that job. And I'm sitting here like a 3.2, if a 3.2 is failing in engineering, then as a society, we have to really take that into account. Like, what are we doing to our kids, or future college students that are going through college right now? They see someone, working at NASA, and then you see those comments on a video of like, you're not smart enough to be there. what are we putting emphasis in their mental health? Because I know when I failed classes, I was depressed. I had imposter syndrome. I had a lot of internal things that I had to deal with. And, having those negative comments, kind of just brought those back up saying, this is what I dealt with. So that's what I try to do with social media is, again, like you said, perfectly humanize the science STEM profession, because we're all human. We're not robots. There's some people who have 4.0 GPAs and I'm super happy and proud of them. But then there's other people who are as successful with not a 4.0 GPA. There's not a lot of stuff that you take into account. Maybe the people with not the perfect GPA were in clubs, they were volunteering. There's a whole bunch of human element behind just a statistic or a grade that we need to try to get away from.
Absolutely. And I think that success and personal success can be defined so differently for each person that, I see you now, you don't just do your job. Like, your content creation is another person's full-time job, and you're able to do 2, 3 like full-time jobs at once. Like, that GPA in no way can kind of quantify that potential that
Right.
you would become this person. Okay, so I think you addressed so well how you felt when you were taking that class. How did that first kind of hit, and then retaking it, how did that impact your GPA? And then how did you try to keep up, or how did trying to keep up with the class take a toll on your well-being? You had shared that you felt really like sad and depressed. So what resources did you seek to kind of do better, to get that C the next time?
Yeah, so I was also part of the DoD, the Department of Defense Pathways program. So that program allows me to get a full-time job right after I graduate, but you have to have a certain GPA. It's like a 2.5, so it was, fairly in the middle, so it wasn't too bad. But when I failed that class, the reason I was very depressed is because I did not know what my GPA will end up for that semester. And so I thought, you always think like something happens to you, you always think of like the worst scenario, you fail, you lose your scholarship, you lose all these things that come with it. So again, it's just, to me, I was just extremely in a really difficult place. The only reason I was able to come out of it was relying on my family and, specifically my husband, my fiance at the time. He's older than me, so he graduated. He was already working for Nav Air. And so he was able to, kind of relay a lot of the stuff that he also went through. He also failed a few classes, and he's like, we all go through this. So it was a very welcoming and like overwhelming feeling of support from my family. And then also, I was able to, do a lot of research online of, what can I do to get out of this depression. I was able to read books. I was able to meditate. Like, I started to, like, my mental health at that time was really, really low, but then I started to get out of it slowly by, doing different things, by meditating in the morning, by, taking it easy, taking a break sometimes, because as a student, you're just go, go, go all the time. Especially an engineering student, you're just like either studying or you're doing some other things, homework. And so, I specifically took 2 days out of the week to just absolutely do nothing. And so that really helped clear my mind, for me to get back on track and not just be constantly stressed, like I'll be stressed and then I'll just take a break, and then it just, that roller coaster keeps going. But for me, it was really helpful to take that time off to, really, like read or do something completely different than just think about organic chemistry at that time.
No, I absolutely love that. Can you share what meditation you first used when you were like, did you meditate prior to these
No.
experiences, and what kind of helped you get into it, or like what hooked you? Because I love to share what hooked me. There's like one specific thing, and prior to that, like, I could not sit there. I didn't like the person's voice. Like, for me, finding someone's voice I really liked was just it
That's
for me.
key. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
key.
was like that key point. Yeah. So what was it for you?
I mean, so I also have ADD. So, a lot of us are very rambunctious, but I mean, I literally have like, I don't know, there's like a TV show where it's like, ooh, ooh, piece of candy, or like, ooh, squirrel, squirrel. That's me. So, sitting down to just, clear my mind was extremely difficult. It took me several months for me to just actually sit then it was like it started off with like 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and I would incrementally like increase and just sit there, listen to classical music, and just literally just clear my mind. And then also, like you said, finding the right voice, because I'm very particular with things. And so finding the right voice, the right music was really, really difficult for me too. So, and then the correct ambiance, because in a house, you have to find like a specific space where you can just sit there and not like hear, dogs in the background, or hear like something in the background which will trigger or like get you out of that state. And so, finding my own personal space really helped as well. And then I started doing yoga. And so yoga was extremely helpful for me too, because not only does it help you relieve your stress, it also, kind of like calms your body as well. So all of that combined, and it took several months for me to like get to the perfect state for me to like, do like 30 to 45 minutes of just in the morning, just sitting there meditating and then just starting my day that way.
I love that. When you were looking for kind of the classical music that you enjoyed, did you already know you like classical music, or was that trial and error as well, that you had to use music versus a guided meditation?
Yeah, I'm a band nerd, and so I've liked classical music since I was in middle school. And so like I already knew, like whenever I studied, I had classical music, because I can't listen to like that upbeat, like in your face, like because if not, I'll start singing and then I'll start distracting myself from studying. So I already had my favorites with regards to classical music, and so it was just kind of like digging deeper into like the one or two artists that I really, really like, and then just, enjoy, putting that into my morning routine.
I love that. And then for yoga, so for anyone listening right now, if they're hearing you speak, they're like, okay, I'm gonna, look into yoga after this. But sometimes we have so many other things going on, we don't know what looking into something means. So did you type this into YouTube, or
Yes.
which practitioner did you find who you could kind of stick with, or who helped you get into it?
The School of YouTube. And so
Okay.
I literally just Googled YouTube, and, I tried different, instructors and on YouTube. And then I specifically like two trainers. And so I just liked the calmness of their voice, and I just liked how they taught. So I stuck with it. I subscribed to those YouTube channels and just like started watching all of their videos.
Do you remember what their names were?
No.
Okay, no worries. I can ask you later, and I can
Yes,
put it in the show notes.
because I'm
Yeah,
subscribed to them. I just can't remember.
brilliant. No, I always want to ask because there's so many great tips or recommendations that come out of these conversations that bridge the gap between someone knowing that they should meditate and do yoga and then actually practicing it. I think there's that. I love these conversations because they allow us to bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So from just the ESPN highlights of what you shared, I'd love to kind of like share it back to you for anyone taking notes or any of that. So the first thing is, okay, you fail a class, look to mentors in your life, older people who are in industry, people who you admire. And you can find them through people in your life or people online or through LinkedIn, whatever it may be, and chat with them about this difficult moment so that you can hear from them how this, doesn't impact your overall career, because everyone
Right.
has failed something. Maybe they're an entrepreneur and they have a failed business before they become a space entrepreneur, whatever it may be.
Right.
And then the second thing is, when you're looking into yoga and meditation, think about what kind of works for you or what's important to you, what kind of music you listen to, carve out the time and space and find a place in your home that
Environment. Yep.
has, yes, perfect. Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay. So the next topic that I'd love to talk about is failing forward. And you had shared that failure is just a stepping stone to success. We have to normalize failure and say it is okay. Just don't give up and keep working towards your goal. You'll get there. So I wanted to ask, how many years has it been since you graduated? And how many times has failing organic chemistry ever come up?
So I graduated in 2014, and this will be 7 years in the summertime. So, the only time that it's ever come up was when, after I did the interview, after they already looked at my resume, when I already got the job and we're onboarding, is when they ask for your transcripts. And the only reason they ask for your transcripts is to, A, verify that you got the degree that you're claiming on your resume. And actually that's it. That's the only reason, is for them to just, hey, she passed and she has that graduated thing on her resume. And then ironically, when I went to Blue Origin, which I thought was really weird, I went through like the rigorous interview process at Blue Origin. They never asked for my transcripts. They're just like, you're starting on this day, fill out these tax forms, like the normal stuff. And then they never asked for my resume. Like, it's never really come up in conversation. The only time it came up in conversation is when I personally say, yeah, I failed organic chemistry. At first I was a little hesitant with saying it, because, whenever you fail something, you think that you yourself, it's like a personal reflection on you, like you are that failure. And so after I failed it, I was like, I'm never speaking about this again. I'm going to move past it. And I just was always ashamed about that. And then whenever I would turn in the transcripts for like a job offer, I would say, oh, they're going to look at that and they're just going to rescind the offer and say goodbye, sorry, you failed organic chemistry. I don't know why I ever had those thoughts, because employers don't look at that. They look at, okay, she has the minimum GPA that's required for the job. She got her degree. We love her because, we've already gone through the interview process. In the interviews, they never asked me like, what did you fail, or did you fail a class? They always ask you just the typical interview questions of like, how are you going to succeed in this position? How are you going to work well with others? It never comes up. So again, that's why, to me, going back to that, the initial thought of like, we put so much emphasis on GPA and we freak each other out, and we get so tensed about that employers aren't really looking at that. They're looking at the well-rounded person, your interview skills, your resume, how do you work well with others? Because, they're not going to give you a test when you start your job of like, name this molecule. They're going to obviously train you to do the job that they're going to hire you for. And so they just want to see that you have that, that background of, STEM or whatever you're applying to, whether it's, or maybe outside of STEM, like architect or whatever. It's, they want to make sure that you have that college background, and then they will train you to be who they want you to be at the job and the position that you're applying for. So, for me, it came to the realization of like, failing forward is, for me, failing that class has never held me back. And again, at first I thought it would. It never has. It's not really come up. The only time it's come up, again, when I was talking to my launch director, I flat out was just like, oh, I failed it. So it's just come in conversation of just me owning my, failure, or what I thought was a failure. But in actuality, it was just, a way to, move past it and move on, because I learned from that failure. I learned to, take extra time to study. And so I learned, again, what my strengths are when I'm studying, and then what my strengths and weaknesses are when I am failing a class. So to me, failures help you excel in the future, because you don't want to repeat that failure yourself, because you know exactly how you feel. You knew how down you were on yourself, and you don't want that feeling to happen again. So you learn from your mistake or your failure, and then you learn from it and you move forward, and you become that much of a better person when you're either taking the class, or let's say you're working on a project and you make a mistake, you learn from that, and then you learn to not make that mistake again. So again, you become a better person.
I absolutely love that. I had written something exactly a year ago today, because I graduated unemployed in the middle of the pandemic as an international student, and I had a ticking clock. If I didn't get hired or into graduate school by a certain time, I would have to leave the country. And that to me meant, oh, I can't pursue that dream. And then I had 2 classes that I had failed. One I could use freshman forgiveness for. But again, this had very real implications, because in my mind, I was like, this is going to be held against me for the very reasons you said. But something that you said, maybe, pull out my journal of what I had written a year ago. And I wrote down, the very things that were the most hurtful to me are the very things that are the most helpful to me. Use your difficult times as a platform for productivity. And I think that's what's so crucial, is recognizing it as this. I always visualize it as kind of like ground zero. It's like, you ain't going below here.
Right. You can't go below where you are. Exactly. And that's what I usually say with that comment of like, it's just a stepping stone to success, because unless just completely like you fail and you quit, you stay on that level. And so you sometimes can retract if you don't, push yourself. But if you just keep going, even if like the next semester you fail again, I got an F in organic chemistry. If I failed again, but I got a D, I'm going up. That incremental growth is what you learn and what you can use for the next time that you're going to either take a class or a test, or at work if you're working on a project. Again, like you're going to learn from your mistakes the most than your successes, because you know that you don't want to repeat that mistake, because you don't want to repeat having that exact same feeling that you had when you failed or you made that mistake.
Exactly. And I think what is coming up for me as you share that is to recognize how to not feel a specific way. You have to feel that thing in the first place. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying this to my younger self is when I failed my classes, I, told myself like, oh, I can just hang out with a friend or talk to my mom and I won't feel bad. Like, or I'll try to feel better, without kind of sitting in that like icky feeling for just enough to kind of recognize what it is. I think it's like important to sit in it and like think of what it is so that you can heal it, because you need to I think I listened to a podcast yesterday saying you need to feel the thing to heal the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you feel icky about something, that's what's propelling you with that motivation. Like the good feelings aren't the ones providing the most drive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, whenever I fail at something or if I make a mistake, like to me, I'm very competitive. So for myself, I want to, showcase that I can do it. And so that motivates me even more to work harder, if that makes sense. So like, if I'm like easy street and I'm perfect at everything, I'm going to stay at that level. I'm not going to grow incrementally. And so for me, whenever you're failing or making a mistake, that's what's making you grow as an individual.
No, I love that. And I guess what I was curious about is the haunting. So for a lot of people listening, they are younger, they're not well established in their
You could say I'm
careers
old, that's okay.
as you are. No. You just have you have kind of like the chops to like support that, hey, I made it past it, but I like really made it past it. Whereas a lot of us are still trying to we don't have enough evidence. Like there's more evidence of failure rather than success, right? And that's where I was, where if I looked at it objectively, the failure list just felt a little longer. And so I had to work on focusing and building the success list, which I did.
Right.
But there are hauntings, I think, for sure, where you just remember, and it's like that reel where you're like cringing.
Oh yeah.
And so I would love to kind of just chat about things that maybe you did to address those hauntings. It could just be time healing it, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I still have, I think it was last week when I had this recurring nightmare where I go into class and I haven't been to class all semester and it's the final exam and I'm like, I have to pass it, or if not, I fail the exam. I've had that recurring dream since I graduated. So it's been 7 years. So I'm still trying to figure out how to move past that portion or that dream. But to me, you said it perfectly. I have something called a brag sheet. And so it's like you said, you write down all of your successes, as little as you think it might be or as big as you think it might be. And whenever you have these doubts, or you think that you're just a failure in life, you look at that sheet and you just think of what you've overcome so far. For me, I'm a first generation student. Me graduating alone was a huge success for my family because I'm the first one to graduate in my family. And so as little as you think as that may be, just you graduating, that's a huge success. And so I always look at those sheets and I look at what I've overcome so far, and that helps me move forward, because it's really easy to get down on yourself. You're your harshest critic. You're always going to think that I'm comparing myself to somebody else, and somebody else is my age and they're at this level. I'm down here at this level. I did that when I was in college. I graduated in 6 years versus others who were in 4 years. And so whenever my friends would graduate and I would still be in college, I felt like a complete failure. And so that's why I started working on those, on that brag sheet. Passing organic chemistry is definitely on there. Just being able to overcome those obstacles for my own personal growth, is really hard for me to come out of that mentality of comparing myself to other people. And I know that's really hard for everybody, but that's something that we need to work on, because it's not good for your mental health for me to say, again, I'm still in college, all these people are starting their careers or buying a house. Because now that I'm, 7 years out of college and I'm looking back, a lot of those people that graduated before me or who I thought were successful are now looking at my, platform, and now they're asking me for advice. So, you never know, like a few years from now, wherever you think you're a failure, you may not be in the same position that you are now. And then the people that you admired or who you thought had a better life, may start admiring you. So, having that brag sheet there is the very first step. And that was the first step of how I was able to overcome those thoughts. However, I still have those nightmares. So if like anybody out there has some advice to get those nightmares away or out of my head, I would love it. But just in general, it's going to take time. It's going to take, you personally looking inside of yourself and working on you, because it's your journey, it's your career. Whenever people ask me of like, hey, I'm 40 years old and I'm just starting college, I feel like such a failure. You're not. The fact that you are going back to college because you don't like your career, or you were in the military and you're starting after, like, you've already had an entire life, an amazing life in front of or behind you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're 40 and you're starting college that you're a failure. Like, you are an amazing person. This is your journey, and that's what we need to collectively think of ourselves, is we are on our own journey. We need to learn and better ourselves and stop comparing ourselves to other people.
Absolutely. And I'd love to kind of share my 2 cents on addressing hauntings. So I used to have like the brag sheet. As I mentioned, I used to write it out. But what I kind of recognized was that that feeling of the haunting was like feelings of maybe shame or sadness. And to kind of like match that energy but with like a different one, for me that was gratitude and awe. So like AWE, awe. And I have this thing called like an awe jar now,
I love
where instead of writing it out by like writing it all in a list, which also really helps, because it's like, wow, look at the length of this like list of my accomplishments, quite literally. Right. Where I just like put in moments where like I put in those little things in this jar, and it could be little things with relationships or career, anything that like brings me awe, or like I'm proud of myself, or just proud of the life I've created. And so I'll like read it out if I ever have a haunting, because it's that like cringe feeling, and you can kind of microdose on your awe instead.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Like, I love it. Just like if you have like those thoughts in your head, you just like go into the jar and then just like open it and then just relive that. Pick a random one so you can relive that joy. I'm gonna start doing that. I really like that idea.
Thank you. Yeah, it like even saying it, I feel like a sense of just like lightness. Like I feel like light over here.
Oh, I was gonna say I felt like a flutter. So yeah, just like, thinking about doing it.
Yeah, I think that has really worked for me. And I like talking about the hauntings, I was like, oh, that's actually something that I do that helps me. Love that. Okay, so for let me see. I guess I had one more question wrapping that topic up, which is, what would you want to share with any student right now who's insecure about their grades? Could you speak to that insecurity, being just the brilliant engineer and creator that you are?
No, I'm just for all mankind. I just watch Netflix all the time. No, I think that, we all have those insecurities. We all have those feelings. And so that's why I try to use my social media so we can openly talk about it. When I was going through college, I was using my Instagram for like traveling. I thought that you had to be like a travel or like a beauty influencer to be on Instagram. And so, I didn't have those role models or people to look up to and to reach out and say, hey, is what I'm feeling okay? So I would say to like reach out, use your social media, use, Ricky, myself, like use all of us to help you to get hype, have like your hype group, around you. So like whenever you're feeling down or whenever you're doubting yourself, you have these wonderful support system behind you, to validate those feelings and say, look, it's okay. Here is how you can overcome it, or here is how you can move past it. So like validate your feelings, say that yes, we acknowledge your feelings because I felt the same way. And so give like your advice on how to move past it. And so what I would tell my younger self is to like seek out those mentors, seek out people in positions that you want to be in, or that that you admire, and ask for help. Ask like, you're not alone, because that's what we're trying to do on social media. And that's what the beauty of social media is to kind of build a community so we can all essentially just bring each other up.
Absolutely. And I have this friend of mine who is kind of that person for me, where if I ever feel small or less than, and if I try to kind of explain to her what I'm feeling, I almost end up feeling embarrassed for saying what I'm thinking out loud, because saying it out loud, like just hearing myself say it back, it sounds so absurd, when we're doubting ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yep, absolutely. Like when
Yeah.
you say it, you're like, am I really thinking that? Like, whenever you're thinking by yourself, like you said, like those thoughts could be dark. And so like whenever you say it out loud and have someone else hear it, then you think back and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought that, So perfectly said, like, use your network, get us to help you get out of, whatever doubts or whatever you're feeling, use your network and talk to us.
Exactly. And something else that could be potentially helpful is like, again, writing out that weird negative thought that you have, or you can record it as a voice memo on your phone and just play it back to yourself. And you'll kind of feel like you wouldn't say that to a friend. It's like if you call yourself stupid, like you wouldn't say that to a friend. So that's a very real way of just reminding yourself, like, not to say that stuff to yourself.
Oh yeah. And then so other ways is like, you can write down your negative thoughts on paper, cut it up, and then if like you have a fire pit or something around you, burn it. Just get those thoughts out of your mind, because you doubting yourself is, like you said, you're your harshest critic. So using all of these tools to get you out of that mindset. We're all amazing in our own way. So, it's really, really helpful to either write it down, like you said, play it back to you, and then you realize like, oh, that's what I thought about myself, or, just like burning it up, saying, okay, I'm not going to have these thoughts. So, just like moving forward from it.
Absolutely. And something really special, I think, about STEM and about like the content creation that you do is that when we succeed in these things, it kind of benefits everyone. Like it benefits humanity. It benefits people in our community. So like you choosing to believe or choosing to doubt yourself is actually like hindering society or just like everyone else's like benefit as well. And I think about that a lot, because like sometimes you might think like, oh, what might that person think of me? But it's like, no, actually, if you succeed, like collectively we all succeed and like benefit. I think it's really cool.
Absolutely. And then the other thing to add on that is, a lot of people, going back to like that humanizing the STEM profession, a lot of us, a lot of the people in the community are like, oh, she's a rocket scientist, she should be like, she's like the smartest person on the planet. No. And so like I still Google stuff, and it's okay. Like we don't necessarily have to know it all. And that's a lot of pressure that STEM professionals or people who are going to school in STEM, is they think that they have to know it all. But the secret is we don't. Like we Google stuff still, I Google stuff still. Like it's okay. You don't have to know it all. And so, allowing you to accept that will take that whole weight off of you thinking that you have to be like all knowledgeable, and you don't.
Exactly. Okay, so the final topic is perseverance, and you had shared that you had applied 13 times before you got an interview and eventually landed your job with NASA. So could you share a little bit about how you like moved on after every time you applied and kept going? Because that's a lot
tough.
of times, and I'm so just like I have a full body like happiness for just the fact that you're here and like you get to wear that like NASA rep and be like, yeah, I work here.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, applying 13 times, you think, even like 2 or 3 times and you get rejected, people are like, yeah, that's it, I'm just not good enough for NASA. No, it's just that, if it's something that you want to work, or if it's like your dream career and you just keep getting rejected, what I usually tell people is learn from your last application. So, you're able to either contact the hiring manager or the recruiter and say, okay, I know I didn't get the interview this time. Is there a specific skill that I should work on to make myself more competitive for the next time that I apply? And so, and also 13, I thought it was a really big number, but there are other people who applied way more than 13 times, and they just keep on applying because it's something that they want. It's something that they want to attain. They want to be in that position. So that motivates them to just keep on applying. And then the other thing with NASA is, because it's a government organization, it doesn't have a lot of funding. A lot of the actual NASA positions, like the government NASA positions, there's a few of them. And so whenever they open it up, that's the other thing I had to research and reiterate to myself, that like, hey, you're competing with a whole bunch of people in the United States. Like, you're not just competing for federal employees, you're competing with anybody in the United States who wants to work at NASA. So, you're one of like several thousand, or, it's thinking about that made me feel a little bit better, made me want to keep applying more. And then again, using your mentor. So whenever you got that feedback from the recruiter, I had people who worked at NASA, and I was like, hey, this is the feedback that I got for this position. Here's my resume. Is there something that you think that I could add to my resume to make myself more competitive? So it was, utilizing the recruiting side of things, and then utilizing your network to help you achieve, keep on applying, getting yourself more competitive for the very next time. And then, just keep on applying. And that's what I tell people as well. Like, it's not that I had a lucky 13. I think a lot of people are like, oh, lucky 13. No, it was just
Like, no.
it could have
Yeah.
been a lucky 7. It could have been a lucky 2. Like, my husband got hired. He applied 2 times, and like the second time he got hired versus me. And it's not that, his GPA was better or that he was more competitive. It was just that the experience that he had in his work, his work resume was exactly what they were looking for.
At that
And
point of
so
time.
at that point in time, correct.
Exactly.
So, maybe I could have, whenever I would get that recruiter feedback, I would, go back to my manager at the time and be like, look, can I have more experience in this field? Or like, can I get more data analysis experience, stuff like that, so I can add it to my resume to make myself more competitive. And so, perseverance is a huge thing. If it's something that you really want to do, just keep on applying. It's not that you're not good enough. And trust me, I had those thoughts. I thought that I was like not good enough for NASA. It was just, you don't have the experience that they're looking for at that time. So, just keep on going, keep on applying. And, that's all I could say, because I'm a perfect example of, perseverance is key. Keep going. Because I could have quit at like 3 or 4, and then I would
Yeah.
not be in the position that I am
Or
now.
5 or
Or
7,
5 or
but
7,
you
or
were like,
9.
you know what? No. Yeah, I think that was just like a collective like exhale for all of us, and just the sensation of like clenching and like unclenching your fists and like releasing, like letting go. Like, you can build your career to there, or you can get it straight out of school, but
Right.
it doesn't really say much about you either way. It's just
Right.
all about timing.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people recognize that. Like, I
Yeah.
think people think that like even your GPA has a lot to do with like timing and what's happening in your life, or what combination of classes you're taking, what was available, the timing of the professor that's teaching it,
Do
how
they have
you
extra credit? Do they
exactly
have, yeah, exactly.
how you're meshing. And people don't recognize that like life just happens, and the faster you recognize that, the faster you can, feel the feelings, move on, work on your hauntings, create your awe jar, meditate, do yoga, all the things. um but yeah, I think that timing piece is so so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I have one last question for you. What does wellness mean to you as a NASA engineer?
Wellness means working on yourself, continually working on yourself, getting to know yourself personally. And NASA, the really good thing about working there is they really care about your wellness. So that's why you have a whole bunch of leave, a whole bunch of time to take leave. If you're stressed out at work, take that mental health day, because, the mentality in the United States versus like the rest of the world. I saw a meme today where it was like, I'm out of office in Europe is like, yeah, I'm returning in September. I'm going camping for the next 3 months. And then like in the United States is like, hey, I'm going to have kidney surgery, but I'll have my cell phone on me at all times. So things like that, we have to work on ourselves, and we have to work on, getting that balance of, whether it's work, whether it's student life, and then enjoyment, and then working on yourself, getting that meditation going to yoga, taking that vacation, and not worrying about everything on this side, which is, let's say, college and work and stuff like that, because, you only have one life, and, you have to take care of yourself. You have to ensure that in order for you to be successful in your career, you are taking care of you. And so that is what wellness means to me. And again, I'm really excited that I was here. This conversation was awesome. I'm honored that you asked me to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for contributing to just the series, and every story that I share is like so special, and I'm so happy and excited that I got to share this side of you through a whole conversation, and that it's like a part of our legacy. Like, it gets to live on this platform and people can come back to it. And if you're ever talking about like GPAs, you can say, hey, like I had that conversation. So thank you so much for squeezing this in to your busy schedule. I will post this right after. And it was so good to meet you. It was so overdue.
I'm so glad we finally met. Like I said, we all know each other through social media. So like when we finally like either meet virtually or in person, I'm just like starstruck. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Nikki. So, I'm again so glad that I'm and happy to be here. And I'm going to be starting that odd jar because I love that idea. So
yes.
I'll probably be posting it on my social media and tagging you and be like, look, this is the start of my odd jar.
Yes. Okay. Have just a brilliant day full of inspiring meetings. Thank you so much. Once again, I'll be canceling or ending the live now.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.